Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. Now, Maitreya has been on TV for some time now, giving however many interviews he has in several nations around the world. And according to Benjamin Creme's master, millions and millions of people have already seen Maitreya on TV. Now, most of those millions are totally unaware of who he is and how extraordinary he is. They just see him as an average person or a normal person talking on TV. Now, according to Benjamin Creme's master, of those people who are unaware who he is, some people like what he says, it's maybe new concepts. Other people might view it as being kind of peculiar, not know really what to make of it. Other people are totally against what he's saying because of the fact that he doesn't stand for what they want. And so that's to be expected, I'm sure, right? Now, according to Benjamin Creme's master, there are others who are starting to kind of wonder who this person is. And they're starting to see him as kind of extraordinary. Maybe they've seen him a few times on TV and kind of got to know him a little bit. And others are kind of scared to speak out because they think he might be who they think he might be, but don't want to say anything because they don't want to look like an idiot like me. Others, according to Benjamin Creme's master, are already starting to see him as somebody sent by God himself and are really starting to resonate, with what he's saying. What he's saying is starting to resonate with them. Now, according to Benjamin Creme, Maitreya really is not so much about people recognizing him for that, because he doesn't like to be referred to as a Christ or as the imam mahdi or the Messiah or whatever. He just wants to be known as a teacher, right? Because he says it creates nothing but confusion. But what he wants is for you to want for the world what he wants for the world, which above all is peace. Now, if what I think and who I think Maitreya really is true, I think he embodies the very love nature of God. So if that is true, when he is speaking directly heart to heart with the listeners who are hearing him on TV. It has to be having an effect on them, whether they're aware of it or not. And ultimately, that effect will be reminding us the truth that we're all one, is really what it amounts to. Now, this situation and this state of affairs is not permanent. So Maitreya will eventually be known for who he is, declared for who he is. People will recognize him as the one that Benjamin Creme had been talking about for so many years that's the guy, right? Now, I think the other reason why he is not recognized really for who he is because Maitreya has a knack of being able to take very, very complex truths that, like for instance, the law of cause and effect, right? It's one of the two greatest laws that govern all humanity, anywhere from the individual level all the way up to the national and international level, right? I mean, it defines our life for good or for ill, depending upon whether we're living within that law peacefully and harmlessly or we're not. And what shapes our lives is based off of that law of cause and effect, which we are in control of, actually. We're the ones that create it for ourselves. Nobody creates it for us. And so Maitreya, through Jesus 2,000 years ago, let's take a look at this, took that one law that governs all of life, not only on this planet, but throughout cosmos, okay, that he and according to the masters, he knows more about the law of cause and effect than any of the other masters. So he took this very, very complex truth that governs everything in the cosmos and boiled it down to what you sow, so shall you reap. Was that 7 words? Couldn't be simpler. But yet it's so simple that as many times as I've gone to church in my life, I've never heard a theologian or a preacher or even people talking about the Bible, not one person has ever mentioned that sentence, that 7-word very simple sentence being about the law of karma or the law of cause and effect. But Jesus, when he spoke that, and Maitreya was speaking through Jesus at the time, when he said that, he was speaking about the law of cause and effect in a very simple way, and it was missed by people for thousands of years. You know, a tree is known by its fruit, right? Again, talking about the law of cause and effect. But he put it in such a simple way that most people miss it. So I am sure that Maitreya, when he's out talking on TV the way that he is speaking these truths, but he's speaking it so simply that people are missing it. I'm sure that he's not just talking about sports, you know, or whatever, right? But I bet you even if Maitreya was talking about sports, he'd be speaking it in a way that he would be teaching you a truth. But, you know, I mean, but at the same time, you know, he's speaking it in such a way that it's very simple. Now, some people can pick up on that and recognize it. Other people are probably recognizing it just from their heart's recognition, and not even what he's saying, but who is saying it. So that's lending its weight to it, right? Now, again, the state of affairs, and this isn't the way it's always going to be, right? But the way I see it, not long after Maitreya is really known for who he is, he's going to introduce us to several things. Now, I think Maitreya's job is broad in scope, right? But again, he's going to, when he talks about things, it's going to be very simple, right? But initially, he is going to be saying, for instance, like peace, right? Peace isn't something you should be longing for and hoping for. It's a necessity. We have to create peace, or we're not going to be here much longer, right? So he's going to be talking to our world leaders about that, and they'll be asking him, how do we create peace? What do we do? You know, and he already has the steps for it, for instance, and again, very simple. You know, we have to share the world's resources, and that will create justice, which will create trust, which will create peace. That's the path to peace, the only path to peace. But he'll probably put it like, well, I mean, you know, I mean, maybe like, let's say the President of the United States, should we create a stronger military, right? Well, and have more of an American military presence around the world. Is that going to create peace? And he'll probably say, no, that's not going to create peace, right? Look to what the United States did right after World War II as a model for what you guys can do. You know, where the Marshall Plan was instituted not long after World War II, where the United States took its excesses of resources and gave it freely to Western Europe. And then when Western Europe's economy was starting to be rebuilt, they gave some of their excesses back as payment for that. Look to that model, right? And then they might go, well, how do we create that on an international level? Okay, well, we have this organization called the United Nations that hardly any country really looks to as any kind of leadership role, right? It's just kind of there, you know, it's kind of like the appendix of the international politics right now. But eventually it will be central to the lives of all of us, you know, and especially to the nations around and the governments around the world. The United Nations will solve a lot of our problems and help us to work together more in a unified manner and so forth. So he'll say, well, look to the United Nations, you know, and create a department in the United Nations that can do this or whatever. I don't know, you know, and that's how he's going to start that process, right? And then other groups or nations or cities or whatever might go, well, how do we clean up our rivers or our oceans, or how do we do this? And he'll talk to them about that. And at the same time, I think Maitreya will start to, in a very broad way, start talking about the nature of life itself and where we fit into that we're souls in incarnation, that there's really nothing but unity, right? And talking about it in a very simple way that we can kind of get at that time, wherever we're at, right? And then he'll start to introduce us to the fact that there's a kingdom above humanity that's here to help us, that we're moving into, called the spiritual kingdom, or the hierarchy of masters. And he'll start to introduce those masters. Well, this was the master Jesus, and this is the master who was Peter, and this is the master who was John, and the master Kuthumi, and this is the master Rakuzi. He used to be, you know, Saint Germain and Francis Bacon, which will start to prove in our minds the reality of reincarnation, because we'll see examples of it. And then he'll introduce the Space Brothers to us, and he'll show us that there are civilizations that are on all the planets that we are, you know, in our solar system, but some of those civilizations have been helping us along for millennia and have been increasing their help to help us get over this crisis, and that they're harmless and they're beneficial. So he introduced us to that fact, right? In a very simple way, I'm sure, so not to frighten us. But so he'll be working in a very practical way in terms of, how to help build the structures to help, share the resources and so forth, and then doing these other things as well. This is kind of the way I see it. And then as he starts to introduce these masters will start to help humanity in a way that only they can help humanity, right? So, for instance, the Master Jesus, I think he'll have a little bit broader scope than a lot of other masters, but his main focus is going to be the churches of the world, especially the Christian churches, and taking on a leadership role in that way, helping to clean up the dogma and a lot of the misinterpretations of the Christian churches. And then other masters, like the Master Rakuzi, might not have disciples in the same way that Jesus does, but he'll be working more with governments of the world to help them solve their problems or help them along in their way, right? Other masters will be working more directly with the United Nations politically, or with the United Nations in terms of the redistribution of the resources with the principle of sharing. And then other masters like the Master Jawal Kul or Master Kutumi or Moria, they might be teaching humanity more directly about the laws of life. But it'll take time to get to that point, I think. For the most part, the first priority is peace and then saving the environment. How are we going to do that? And so individually we'll ask these masters how to do it. As groups and as nations, we'll ask them how to do it. Internationally, we'll ask them how to do it. And these masters already have the plans in place to help. They already have their willing helpers that have been doing, working behind the scenes. They're disciples in the world. They're working in the political arena, with the environmentalists, with the scientists and so forth. And so the infrastructure is already in place for the aiding and helping of humanity. It's going to take a little bit longer time for this to kind of kick in, I think. This is just my interpretation. I could be wrong. But eventually, once we get the peace thing handled, and of course the environment is stable and so forth, some of these masters, and Maitreya himself, will start to talk in greater and greater depth about who we are as souls, how that relates to the world and the cosmos itself, the laws that govern that, the law of cause and effect, the law of reincarnation, talk about the different types of energies that impact humanity in a way, and individually, groups, nations, and so forth, so that we'll have a better understanding of the universe and ourselves, because we're not separate from the universe, and the universe isn't separate from ourselves. But as Maitreya would say, it all starts with, and as always, take action. Help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos. Have a great day.